So, I heard from a birdie that you're struggling with acrylic application. So, in today's video, I'm going to explain everything related to acrylic nails, how to apply acrylic, and how to work on your practice hand. And there's also going to be a bunch of little tips and tricks. So, stay tuned. So, here we just have a practice finger, and I'm going to teach you how to prep it. But first, let's go over some of the supplies that we're going to need for today's video. So first, let's talk about monomer. Honestly, you can get any brand of monomer. The thing that you want to make sure is that it's an EMA monomer. That is the most important thing. MMA monomers are not safe to be used on nails, so you definitely want to check the ingredient list and make sure that it is an EMA monomer. Here I have my dappen dish, which is honestly just a shot glass, and I'm putting a piece of tissue paper at the bottom so that I don't contaminate my monomer, and you can do this as a beginner. It's really going to be helpful for you. Here we have our monomer. So for everything I use in this video, I'm going to go ahead and leave some links down below for you guys. In case you need anything, you can go ahead and grab it. Almost everything can be found on Amazon. Next we have our acrylic powder. I'm going to be using this one by Angel Acrylics. You can use any acrylic powder that you have on hand, and you want to make sure to shake it really well so that the pigment and the powder are mixed together. You don't want to have an ombre effect in your powder. And now let's start prepping our practice nail. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and just clip off the excess of the nail. You're not going to need it. So we're going to trim that. I'm using nail clippers, but you can go ahead and use a tip cutter. It's probably going to be a bit easier than using nail clippers to trim this and also cut your nail tips. Next, we're going to go ahead and buff the nail. Right now I'm using an 80/80 grit file, but if you were to use it on a client, you want to go for something much lighter. So you could use a 100-120 nail file on a natural nail, but since this is a practice hand, I'm just going to use the same nail file that I'm going to use to file the acrylic. I'm going to go over the entirety of the nail and make sure that the surface is nice and scratched up. When buffing the nail, you want to make sure that you remove all of the shine off of the surface of the nail. That is going to create the perfect surface for adhesion for your products. And once you're done buffing, you can go ahead and start dusting and get ready to apply your nail tip. With your nail tips, you want to make sure that they fit sidewall to sidewall. If it's too large, go ahead and size down to the next size. You want to make sure that the corners reach exactly, that they don't go over or press into the skin of your natural nail. Here I have some nail glue. You can opt to use nail glue to glue down the tips, but for sake of speed and the purpose of this video, I'm going to go ahead and use rhinestone glue for this. It's also going to just make it a lot easier than just pressing and holding down on the nail glue. This is honestly one of the best hacks for when you're practicing. It's way faster than just using regular glue. Now that I have the UV glue, I'm going to go ahead and use a pin cure light to cure this nail tip in place. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim the nail tip to my desired length. So I'm going in with the nail clippers at the edges because I can't fit the whole clipper through the tip. That's just going to create a guideline where I can twist off the excess of that nail tip. Next, I'm going to start filing and blending the nail. So first things first, to keep a straight line, you can go across. And you definitely want to hold down to that nail tip. You don't want it to zigzag in place. Next, we're going to go straight down the length of the nail, and we're going to make sure that the tip matches the natural nail, and whatever you do on one side, you want to repeat it on the other side. So you want to hold down that nail nice and tight and file straight across to match the tip to the natural nail. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to etch your nail tip. Now for acrylic, you don't have to etch the entirety of the nail tip, but I still do. I prefer that practice. Next, we're going to blend in the tip with the free edge of the nail and just make sure that there is a nice and smooth transition. Now that it's nicely blended, we're going to go ahead and dust off the excess. Now we have a perfectly prepped tip ready for acrylic application. Next, we're going to go in with our dehydrator. And once the dehydrator dries, you're going to notice that the nail is going to start to get really dusty. And then next we have our pH bond. And now for the bond and the dehydrator, you can go ahead and use any one that you want to. I'm using a Duo set by Savvyland. Now, whenever you use primer, you're going to notice that when you apply it, it's going to leave a sticky kind of wet surface on the nail. That is what you're looking for in a primer. That is the adhesion component of it. For acrylic nails, you want to make sure that your acrylic brush is 100% Kolinsky. There are a lot of brands out there that claim to be Kolinsky and are not. And this is what a Kolinsky brush usually looks like. Now I'm going to teach you your liquid to monomer ratio. But before that, you always want to make sure to remove any air bubbles from your acrylic brush. That's going to make sure that there isn't any air bubbles when you're doing your acrylic application. So let's go over liquid to monomer ratio. This is a really important thing to know. The more you learn about your brush, your liquid to monomer ratio, the easier it is to apply acrylic and to have control over your acrylic. So first, this is how it would look to pick up a large bead. You always want to remove the excess of monomer from your brush at a 45-degree angle. Honestly, everything that you do will be at a 45-degree angle, and you definitely don't want to over swipe your brush. That's going to remove too much monomer and create too dry of a bead. So let's go over this one more time. You're going to wet your brush, and then you're going to pull at a 45-degree angle, and that's going to give you a large bead right there, up to right about half of your bristles. Next, to pick up a medium-sized bead, you're going to go a little bit lower than halfway down on your bristles, and to pick up a small bead, you're going to go almost all the way to the end of your brush, leaving just about a drop of monomer in there, and that's how you're going to go and pick up your small beads. Here I'm going to show you a small bead, a medium bead, and first we're going to go ahead and wet our brush. Drag it up to about halfway down the barrel of our brush. Tap at a 45-degree angle and hold. We're going to allow our acrylic to polymerize, which just means it's going to get shiny, and then we're going to apply our bead. And that is your large bead. Next, we're going to do the same for the medium-sized bead. We're going to wet our brush. We're going to pull out the excess monomer a little bit lower than halfway. Now that the bead is nice and shiny, we're going to go ahead and apply it. And that is your medium-sized bead. And then we're going to do the same for the small bead. We're going to go ahead and wet our brush, pull at a 45-degree angle all the way down to the bottom of the bristles, go in at a 45-degree angle into our acrylic powder, and we're going to pick up that small bead. We're going to allow it to polymerize and wait till it gets shiny. It's going to look like wet bubble gum. Once it does, we're going to go ahead and apply that bead as well. And there you go, you can see it. It looks very shiny and wet. And we're going to apply it. And that is how you apply a big bead, a medium bead, and a small bead. Now we're moving on to our practice finger that is already prepped, and we're going to start with our large bead. So we're going in the acrylic at a 45-degree angle, and we're going to be applying it where the free edge meets the tip. That is where you're going to apply your biggest bead. So we're going to go ahead and put it down. And we're going to bring in the sidewalls. Remember to always use the belly of your brush when applying acrylic and moving the acrylic down the nail. You don't want to use the tip of the brush. You want to use the belly of the brush and tap it in. It's okay if the acrylic starts to move. That means that the gravity is working. What you want to do is guide that acrylic back into place and just be patient with it and take your time. Continue to push in the sidewalls to maintain the shape of the natural nail. And pat, 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 pat. Push in the acrylic into the sidewalls to maintain the shape, always using the belly of the brush. Pat, pat, pat. Now here you could remove the excess of the nail by bringing it down to the down to the tip and swiping it off, but I am actually just going to bring that acrylic back in and make sure that my structure is nice and correct. Here you can look at the nail from a different angle. You definitely want to move the finger around so you can see how the acrylic looks from every angle. So you can look down the barrel of the nail to make sure that it's nice and even, and you can also look down the sides to make sure that your application is good. There had a little bit of excess acrylic, so I'm going to go ahead and remove it. And we're going to move on to our next bead. Now we're going to pick up a medium-sized bead. Pick up your acrylic at a 45-degree angle. Allow that acrylic to polymerize. I am draining my beads a bit because my room is cold, so they are a bit runnier than what they usually would be. Now we're going to go ahead and allow the bead to polymerize. Now we're going to apply this bead slightly above that last bead. This bead is going to be your apex bead. And we're just going to go ahead and put it where we want it, always using the belly of the brush to manipulate the bead. And now we're going to melt that bead into the previous one. And here's a quick tip: if you find that your brush is sticking to your acrylic, it's probably because your brush is too dry. You can go ahead and dip it in the monomer, remove the excess, and continue to manipulate your bead. So now we're going to go in with our small bead. And once again, you want to remove the majority of the acrylic liquid from your brush. Allow that bead to polymerize, and you're going to place this bead right where you left the last one and in between the cuticle, and you're going to make sure to manipulate the bead in a way that it doesn't flood your cuticle and moves downward nicely. So you always want to have the finger pointed downward. That way you can avoid flooding your cuticle. And you can just go ahead and pat it in, pat, 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 and melt it into the last bead that you applied. And that's pretty much it for our beginner acrylic application video. If you found this video helpful, definitely leave a comment down below. I'm thinking about making this a series, and I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you need any extra help, let me know in the comments. Bye!